So the country posted a 3.10% full year GDP growth for last year, down from a bit stronger 3.4% in the previous year of 2021. That data came a few days ago, but the key question is what economic issues are on the minds of the electorate tonight, ahead of tomorrow's most anticipated polls. Chatting to me on this now is Abdulqudud Isiaka. He's a senior economist at ProShare Research. Good evening to you, and it's good to have you on the show on this election eve. So let's start from the GDP. What do you make of the Q4 2022 GDP figures, which was released a few days ago? Are the numbers in line with your expectations as an economist?
Okay, thank you for having me. Obviously, the real GDP figures that came in at 3.52% last quarter substantially exceeded our expectations, given the fact that we had a 500 basis point cumulative rate hike last year. Also, given the fact that, we saw, flash floods affecting as many as 30 of the country's 36 states. Also, towards the end of the year, particularly in December, we saw a sober than usual festive period, So we really had penciled in a 2.9% Q4 GDP growth figures. And, that would have brought for the year 2022 real GDP growth figure to about 3%, just around 3%. Also, note the fact that, the monetary policy action we saw, the Monetary Policy Committee raise rate by 500 basis points would usually have a monetary policy lag, and the effect of which you would expect to be felt most towards the third, fourth quarter. Also, the fact that we are seeing a 2.25% real GDP growth in Q3 suggested that we seem to have been a little bit biased by that. But I think a broad analysis of the sectoral performance shows that I think again not all sectors performed well, holding it up. Particularly the services. So altogether, they contributed about 56% of the GDP in the period. The best performing service sectors were, those of transport. We also saw strong performances from, the regular strong performance, ICT. We also saw very strong performance being posted by financial and insurance sector. I think I must also say that, the PMI figures that ever hinted us, right? We have seen PMI figures remain very strong, despite the raise in interest rates, despite also some of the economic upheavals, despite high cost environment that could actually have, hindered business activity and private sector productivity. But I think altogether, it was quite an impressive performance, although we must say that, 3.01% for the year is not only less than a 3.4% recorded in the previous year, it's also less than the rate at which the country should be growing given its population growth rate. Effectively, we have very tiny margin. It's also less than the country's long run GDP figures. If we look at from 1999, sometime back, we have an average growth rate of around 9%. 5%, pardon me. So if we're growing at 5% at least, then it's not something to particularly celebrate or be impressed by.
Okay, great. So we're going to expand it because it's tonight. Everybody's scrambling for fuel, petrol, food, new notes, whatever it is, because elections is just going to go to the polls tomorrow. What important economic policy campaign points do you think will guide decisions of the electorates tomorrow?
All right. I believe that, everybody would have been largely impressed by some of the flowery and flattering poetry that we've seen in the campaign season. I mean, that's what campaign seasons are about. But the drill, the governance itself is going to be in prose. It means that, we have to drill down and know the details. So we've seen different candidates backing on their strengths. We've seen the PDP candidates speak very strongly about, providing subventions to corporates, tax concessions, providing $10 billion. We've seen the APC candidate talk about, for example, supporting the economy with credit. We've seen the LP candidate talks very strongly about supporting MSMEs. I think that, what we are going to see going forward is different fiscal priorities. So, for example, if we had an LP candidate emerge, for example, the focus is going to be on MSMEs. I think it's going to be a little bit different in the case of the PDP and the APC. if the LP candidate emerges and we'll see a focus on health and education, it's going to be different in the case of APC. APC candidate, for example, is going to be focusing on infrastructure, continuing from where this administration left off. So I think overall we'll see a slight difference in fiscal priorities when they emerge, but that's not really the issue. I think what we should be more concerned about are the hows. The hows will relate and take us back to the revenue generation issues.
Yes, sorry to cut in because of time. I just want to talk about more on the fiscal side. The two wings to all of this, which is the monetary side. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about the central banking policies of the central bank, Naira redesign program, what have you. How much of this current monetary policy would you think will be taken on board as we see a new administration come in the next few months, effectively 1st of June?
Okay, so that's a little bit tricky because we know that the Monetary Policy Authority is to a large extent autonomous. It's not likely to want to. The next president may not necessarily want to interfere with some of the policy programs and plans of the policy framework of the Monetary Policy Authority. But there's also the chance that we could see a situation where the central bank governor is suspended, or some form of suasion or greater interference or interventions, by way of pressuring from the federal government in that case. So really, it's difficult to say, but I feel that a lot of what this current administration is doing will be carried on. Social intervention schemes, development finance schemes, things around raising rates, particularly raising rates to curb inflation, because the whole idea is entrenched as a doctrine in CBN that high inflation rates is going to hinder growth. So I do think that overall we'll likely see monetary policy sustained, although it's going to be a little bit different on the fiscal side of things, depending, of course, on who emerges. Oh,
great. It's an election now tonight. It's going to all take place tomorrow. We have just a couple of hours before daybreak. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best and have a great weekend. Abdulqudud Isiaka, a senior economist at ProShare Research. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.